upside down in Soundschi land. Hi and welcome to the Soundschi land show where everybody's upside down. And today I am super happy to be here with Mauricio Jara, who is a great hand balancer, very strong. And he teaches at INAC here in Portugal, the specialization of hand balance. And you guys probably know I asked you to send me questions on my Instagram story, and I got many replies. So I'm gonna try, or we are gonna try to cover as much as we can, but apologies already if we don't manage to cover everything because I really got a lot of questions. So I'm actually gonna ask you right away. One of the questions was, is it hard to be such a badass?
Okay, so I guess it was hard to start, and then it's not that hard to just maintain your training.
That's a good way.
But yeah, I also know that some people wanted to ask how, because that's a very general question about how
you start.
Yeah, how you started the
How you got
handstand
it.
journey.
Mhm.
And for me, this was a little bit starting in two different ways in my life. So one was when I was just practicing like a hobby, and I was not taking this anything. It was not like a serious activity in my life, but it was still important. And the second start was when I decided I wanted to be a hand balancer.
How old
So-
were you at that time?
So when I started practicing, I was very young. I was like 7 years old. But the approach that I was having was like, like I was just a kid that liked being on his hands and walking around. And that was pretty much I did as a hobby through all my youth until high school, and it was always this activity that was with me. And I never got it anywhere, and I did not know about circus, and I did not know about hand balancers. It was very me.
Yeah.
And then after I joined, after a few more training in other areas, I did, for example, judo, a martial art, and I also did a little bit of gymnastics, but I was not really a gymnast, but I liked it a lot. And I started when I was already old to start gymnastics. I was 18, and I did even less than a year, mainly because I also had college. And about that time, it was when I turned 20, I decided I wanted to turn back to where I started and start handstands for real. So I discovered there was like circus and stuff.
How did you discover that, and who inspired you to start?
So I have a lot of people that inspired me, but the one that maybe was more of an influence at that time, at least from what I was seeing, was Yuval Ayalon. And also at the same time, after I discovered Miguel Santana. But when you see them, it's like similar technique, because it's kind of coming from the same teacher, that is
Claude
this
Victoria.
Claude Victoria, that actually he recently passed away. And
sorry.
yeah, so it was yesterday. It was a kind of sad day for the handstand community, but at the same time it's good because I think his teachings will continue on all his students, all the people he inspired.
For
around
you
the
also,
world.
because you work with him too.
Yeah, I was with him. I had that blessing because I was planning this trip. So 2 years ago, the first time that I came to Europe, it was in my plan to go and see the old Claude, and it was Yuval and Miguel who helped me get in touch with him, and it was a very nice time. It was me and now my wife. At that time, it was not my wife, but we were in his house 1 week, and it was very nice. Yeah.
Nice. So, how did you make the transition then to teaching at INAC? Because you weren't in circus at all, right?
Yeah, no. When I first started training handstands when I was 20, as I said, because I already had a little experience, so I could hold a handstand, obviously, and but my approach for so many years was obviously not directed by anyone that knew about this. So I had like a lot of banana shape. My flexibility was really bad, and yeah, so what I did was like trying to go back to basics, because I was already 20, going back to basics, trying to fix my body in the ways that I knew that was going to get a more efficient practice. So yeah, I had that advantage that I was already comfortable in my hands. I could not do one arm, I could not do any really high level skill when I started, but I did not have to go through all this process to prepare my wrist or to prepare my body because I did that before. And I wanted to join circus school or to have a teacher, but at the moment there was no one in Costa Rica where I lived. And but I was always involved in the world of teaching because I was working in a gym where they were teaching gymnastics, and I was always like assistant, and then they gave me one group, and so I was always involved in the teaching world. It was something I enjoyed. I was teaching also. At the beginning it was more like kids, and then I was getting groups from different ages, but normally it was actually more people, young people that wanted to do gymnastics, and a few of them were gymnasts. Or in the information. So this transition came mainly because the same years that I traveled 2 years ago to train with Claude and to meet with other hand balancers such as Yuval and other people I wanted to meet. It was 3 months just wandering around touring Europe and training. It was hard to train though because when you're traveling you already know that it's very hard to train.
Horrible.
Yeah, so that was the first contact I had also with INAC because Amanda, my wife, she wanted to get in this school, and in this moment I was still deciding whether if I wanted to get in school. And after this trip, I realized like I was already a hand balancer. And Claude told me that like, what would you do in a school? And it's not that I cannot learn in the school, but really I was already too much into this world, and I had already my own training. So I spoke with the guys in INAC, but she stayed there. I came back, and after, well, they offered me to work with them, and I was very happy to get it. And even though I love Costa Rica and I love my country, I believe that for the area of my work, it's not the best place to be at the moment. So, and I want to do what I do. So, yeah, now
Yeah, that's perfect. It just came the right way, right? Okay, can you tell us just very briefly what your day looks like? How much do you teach? How much do you train? And like the loads.
Okay, so I mean, my training has changed, and it kind of is normal. Like this changes throughout the years, not just in a technical level on the things I do, but now let's say because when I started, I was doing more obsessed. I was more obsessed with every day, 6 days a week. I was training 3 to 4 hours handstands. And now I still kind of do this time, but I divide it between the day because now I have other things to do, because now I normally go to school in the morning, and every trimester the schedule will change. And in this circus school I am teaching two kinds of hand balancing, because I teach handstands for the people that are not hand balancers, that do not want to take this specialty, but handstand is still useful in circus.
So everybody
has to take handstand, and then I teach handstand for special students. I mean, special students. Yeah, they're very special for specialization. And so it's different objectives, different goals. And to make my training fit, I just adapt to the schedule. So in my free times, sometimes I will train 1 hour at the start of the day, 1 hour and a half, and then another 1 hour and a half at the end. And when I have the time, I train 3 hours. And because the school is open until 9 p.m. and from 5:30 they're already over, I can stay until 9 training. But yeah, a lot of times I'm very tired because teaching also gets you very tired. But that's how I manage now. I'm like, and it also depends. For example, this last weeks I was performing a lot. So I was not really training, but it was a different kind of training because it was the first time when I was doing. I've done a lot of performance before, but it was the first time I was doing so many performances in such a short time.
3 per day, right?
Yeah, I was doing 3 per day, like 2 weeks in a row, and it was crazy. And
7 days a week? No, 1 day.
No, we had 1 day. Yeah, you need. You need 1 day rest. And it was not enough. So I was not training. I basically was coming to the tent, doing my warm up, doing some handstands, and then perform, and then come back in the afternoon, do the same, and then in the night do the same.
Yeah. So people were asking specifically because you are very good at strength-related skills, what your strength training looks like.
Okay. Again, because I believe that my body was more built to strength moves when I started, mainly because what I did before, and because I did so many mistakes that my body got strong, or that's a way of putting it.
You mean like because when you started,
Yeah,
you
when I
were just
started,
working inefficiently?
I was not being the best efficient, and I'm not recommending people to not be efficient, because then I don't want that to. I don't want, this is not true. I'm just saying that the way I was training at the moment, I know that at some point it helped me get stronger.
Yeah.
But also in the long run it was affecting me. So what I mean is, I always did a lot of conditioning. I never did weights, or these kind of things, but I did always a lot of conditioning. So strength was always a part of important part of my training. I would
What do
normally
you mean by conditioning?
so I do conditioning with my own body. So yeah, not like calisthenics way. It's just more adapt to handstand. But I would do always like end up with sets of handstand push-ups. I will do a little work in the bar, not a lot, but just a little every day. And all these that are essentially for your core. And I was never lazy in these things. So I never specifically trained for skills, sometimes like planche. Like I would just after try, and my body was already strong enough to actually get close and then to get the skill. So now what I was doing actually was more a balance between strength skills and more. I mean, these strength skills would not be my priority, but they would still be something I was working on, rather than just simply because you spend so much time training that you kind of get bored if you just do the same. Or at least that's the what was happening for me. So I was obviously more focused in things that were getting me at the beginning, like getting the one arm, and even less than that, like just getting a good range of motion and flexibility to open up my shoulders and my splits that were terrible. And but I never left this, the strength conditioning exercise for handstands.
Yeah. Okay, so incredible. You didn't really have to work hard for a planche, you said.
Yeah, I had to work hard. It's just that because the past work that I did, it was obviously I skipped this. It's not that I skipped, it's just that I did this before. Because, for example, I remember when I first started to press and very young age, it was not really a press. I was basically doing the start of a press and then a handstand push-up through it in the floor, and I thought that was a press. So bended elbows and just it was the way, because I was younger. I didn't know how to do that without someone telling me that it looks ugly, which I still think it was fine because it was very fun.
Somebody actually particularly asked the question about planche. Do you think for hand balance, I'm just gonna check how they wrote it, because I thought there was an interesting question. Do you think planche training should be a part of every hand balancer's programming? And did your planche strength help you a great deal, or was it hindering at times, like in terms of having technical awareness?
Okay, so no, it's not. I don't think it should be, but I don't think it shouldn't be, because it's like I mean, planche is just one skill, and for example, girls. Okay, I know girls that can do planche very well, but yeah, most of them don't go to that skill, and they're still great hand balancers, because it's more like it's like a strength move, and what I believe is that it helps you in the way that, of course, it's helpful if if you're strong enough to hold your body in a handstand, but in a horizontal position, not just vertical. It means you're strong. So it will exactly, it gives more options, and it's good, but it's not going to help you with real balance when you're in a vertical position, or at least not in that way. And that's why a lot of people that train calisthenics are very good at planching, but then they have trouble with the handstand. So it's not. I don't recommend not doing it. I mean, if it's a skill you want, obviously you can you can go for it, but you have to again balance and do not spend. I mean, if you're going to spend, let's say, if you're going to spend 20 minutes in this skill, doing progression for this skill, then you spend more time in handstand. If you want hand balancing, if you just want to be strong, then you can just keep on planching because it's stronger than doing a handstand.
Yeah.
In a way, it's less efficient to be there. You know, if you see someone, how long he can hold a handstand and how long he can take it to a planche, it's obviously harder with a planche.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So the second question about if your strength ever has hindered you to learn efficient balance because you were able to muscle through some moves that other people just would fall. Do you think that was ever the case, like in terms of it was a hindrance for you?
Yeah, it was at the start when I started 7 years ago with handstands. I mean, I wanted to get the one arm. I was basically just trying not to fall. That was the main idea.
Yeah.
And I was using any resource that I had. Yeah. It was the same thing that we were discussing yesterday when they were also asking me about the approach to do one arm press and one arm lower into croc. Yeah. That are kind of different, very different skills. And it was the same. I remember the first time I did the lowering from one arm to croc, I was not doing it. I was falling towards it because I was like fighting on my balance, and then I end up like in a b-boy move. Yeah. And it's because maybe at the very beginning, my most early stages in when I decided to be hand balancer, I was using strength more than to catch on my balance. Yeah. But then when I started seeing technique, I started seeing more the work of these other people and the way it looked. I realized that I needed to attack more and again step backs, and I was doing more holds only and not taking the arm off and getting the most efficient line. Not because it was looking pretty, simply because it was feeling better in my body. So I don't think it was bad also to, because it's good sometimes to just try not to fall. In my case, after a while, I know that it was technique at the end what saved me, and it was flexibility what saved me. It was not strength, because out of strength, it's kind of you cannot go that far to other skills that I really wanted to have. So it's not something I would recommend all the time but I don't know. At the same time, it's very personal. So I know that now I would say I have a good technique in handstands. I understand it, and now strength is not my priority, but I can still go for the strength moves. So
it's like it looks when you balance like. For you, it's more like play. All the strength moves that are like a huge thing for everybody else, for you can use them to play now and to like jump on tables and stuff like that.
It's some of part of the vocabulary that I go for when I want to train and I feel inspired to try new things. But it's also something that I don't know that. It was after when I realized that some of the moves were going to come easier for me and others were not going to come that easy. As I told you before, one arm press did not come easy for me, but in the long run it came easier. Because then even though it took me a long time to get there, then it did, after I got it did not took me, for example, that long to get it from the floor, sitting on the ground.
Can you just tell us a bit about the process of learning a one arm press?
Yeah, so
because that was also a specific question.
Okay, so for this one, I'm not doing a lot of the things. It's kind of the same exercise that a lot of people use. I was using at the beginning. I was doing things like just holding myself in one L sit in one arm, and I couldn't do it. So then I had to get a rope and get it in a position where it could help me just to lift and stay there. And I was doing this a lot of times. A lot of during my training, at the end of my training, these kind of things. When I was kind of feeling comfortable, I realized that it was different learning how to hold than actually going down or even press. So I was using also weights. That is very common approach. So you grab some weights, a counterweight, and you lower it down. And I did a lot of specific flexibility that, sometimes when you feel the muscles you're using and you know the range you need, then you attack this with, after, I was, the pancake, I needed a lot more flexibility, more compression, and and it's something that, even though it was taking longer than you want, I realized that was very normal in any skill you want. So the way you can approach this is different, but it's also, if you look for the people that are doing progressions, they're kind of always the same. I was using bands. The problem with me is kind of, I don't use one thing. I try everything, and then I get what feels good for me. And I believe that's the same thing that I try to do with my students. Like, I will introduce some techniques, not techniques, but some approach to the skill they want or what we want to have, but I let them also decide if it works for them or not. I believe, again, some things it's better just to do it this way, but I'm a little bit more open because we all have different bodies, and I think we cannot have the same approach to the same person, even if it's the same skill. So that's also why it's confusing sometimes, the people asking me about these kind of skills, and it's not, I don't want to help, but simply they don't give me enough information. Like, I don't know the person, I don't know how to help you. But,
because you don't know what they're lacking.
And sometimes I don't even know their background or how, I'm like, well, if you want this and about online coaching, then send me a video. But then I stopped doing, I never did online coaching because of this. It takes a lot of time. I'm not still into it. But I believe, yes, that there is this thing that a lot of people want that is like very one way, and I believe that there is other ways, and that it will be different for every person.
Actually, I can really see this about you, and this is why I appreciate you a lot as a teacher, because what I see in you is also that you get super creative about finding ways to make the student feel the sensations he should recreate in doing the skill. Like, for me, the one-arm exercises you taught me, they were also completely new for me. Like, after 7 months, and I've met so many hand balancers, you managed to teach me something new I never heard before. And I thought, well, by now I've heard everything. But so it's really good what you're doing. I'm gonna check another question that I found really interesting. Speaking of your teaching, somebody was asking about the best tips for advanced hand balancers, and also the most common mistakes that you see in higher levels, but maybe also other levels.
So these mistakes thing, because it's I find this question that it's kind of big, because mistakes are a lot, and actually mistakes they have to happen. But again, I will say, as we were discussing yesterday, more general mistakes, and that would be maybe something different than the question they're asking, but it's still something that I believe is important to notice, is that advanced practitioners normally have one problem that I had also, that it's when they are so obsessed about what they want, and they get one skill and get obsessed with this skill in their training, and then they forget the rest. So for example, let's say that you want this certain skill that is hard to get, but it's not working this day, and your body is telling you to stop this day, but you don't stop, and you continue, and then you're feeling pain, and then you feel you're bad doing this day, and you lost the day. And I believe that it's very good to get obsessed with the skill, but in your training you cannot, some days it's not going to be good, and it's fine. So you do your progression, and then you leave it. You do your conditioning specific for this, or you do the stretching you need for this, and then you leave it. So that's one of the mistakes that I believe that I did also, because I remember going to my house and feeling like, oh, I just wasted one day. doing this, you know. So I believe it's always good to have a not be. I mean, it's not for everyone to be very structured, but if you don't want to be very structured in your training, at least to maintain the basic things that you know that they have to happen. Because, for example, even though the way I train has changed a lot, the foundation remains.
Yeah.
You know, I still do my holds at the beginning, small holds. I still do my basic drills at the beginning. So some of these basics remain, and I think this is important rather than jump into a skill. That's what I believe. And the second thing that I believe it's, I don't know, a mistake, but it's just something bad for people. It's when you compare a lot to what you see in other people in social media. Because you see now there is a lot of great, incredible hand balancers, but comparing in the way of using someone as inspiration is very good, and that's necessary. But comparing in the way of bringing you down or bringing the people down, or I don't
setting
know,
expectations.
expectations about someone you don't know and you don't know the process. And the way I was putting you that other day was like, the people show only one face normally in social media. They show the good side and they never show the struggle. So your head gets to believe, oh, they don't have struggle. I am the one that has the problem and I'm not doing things right. And it's not the case. Normally, I mean, everyone, you're not born working on your head. Everyone had to learn. And it's true, some people will learn faster for other reasons, but you cannot really consider who is better or not, because you will have to consider how long they train, how did they have a background, or they had a teacher, or their bodies were more likely to get flexible or strong fast, or they were starting very old or young. So it's so many factors, and I believe people just get too crazy about these things. Like, because I know this because of the questions they ask sometimes that are not very important questions. Like they ask always, what is your height? How much you weigh? And sometimes I ask for, but then I'm like, why are they asking this for me? And then I'm like, because they're not focusing on the skill. They're just focusing on you. Like, oh, he can do this because he's small guy, or he can do this but he's tall, so he's you know. And it's like, I admire a lot of the people, but I'm not going to get myself in a place where I look just to what people do and I feel bad about me not being able to, or me feeling good because I can do things other can. And this is something that I believe it happens a lot in this, especially in this environment of social media. So I believe it's good to compare if you want to use someone's inspiration, but it's not good to go to this place where you're just subject of this kind of comparison. It's one of big mistake.
I also found very interesting what you said the other day, that different people have different strengths, and for some people it just makes sense, or basically for everybody it makes sense to follow where they get better easily. Like, for example, if somebody's prone to be more flexible, follow that.
Follow that path and discover this, and it's okay if you don't get a lot of strength moves that maybe they will come out, maybe not.
Like, you don't always have to fight for the thing that is super hard for you.
I mean, it's good. It's because this is what I normally do. For example, me, because flexibility was my main problem. And then there are some moves and some shapes that I want to get. I still want to get. And I probably know in some kind of my mind I will never get. But I still continue training them, even though I know that maybe it will never happen. So it's like a way of, because sometimes you want a skill, and it's not that I'm saying just give up. It's just keep working on it, but don't worry about whether if it's going to happen or when. Because then it's like, so I got some moves that I was working before, and then I get happy about that. But the ones that are still not for me, I keep training, and it doesn't matter if they never happen, because I enjoy training. So find a way to enjoy it, and that's the most important thing, like, at least if you're doing this, because it doesn't matter if you want to be a teacher of handstands or a performer but it's not true that you have to enjoy every day you train in the way that there's not going to be any struggle but in the end of and that was also we were discussing, the end of the day, I think that the people doing this, is nice that they enjoy their practice. And it's good for you, because then it makes you feel good. because you're going to spend a lot of time doing this, so you're not enjoying it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree
So
with you.
it's good to relax also.
What are your favorite hand balancers?
Favorite hand balancers. Oh, so I like so many hand balancers because I just like handstands, and even though I like more styles rather than others, I'll go more straight. Yeah, I like I like Andrei Moraru, I like Pavel Stankiewicz, I like Artur, I like the ones that inspire me first, just because still even though they're not performers, they're great practitioners, like Miguel Santana, Yuval Ayalo, the other guy Yuval. Oh my God, it's so many people. The one that were more inspiring though at the beginning was this Andrei Moraru and this other Andrei Katkov. Because he has a very nice work, and even though he comes from the same school, he has some very interesting work that I think he studied. And and that was one of the guys I was looking forward more in the beginning as a performer and the skills he was doing on stage. But people inspiring me is a lot. The list is longer.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting longer because I still know new hand balancers.
Yeah.
I'll put this off. Yeah.
Okay, I will ask you one last question.
We're fine.
What are your plans for the future for yourself?
Well, I'm for the moment I'm very happy where I am in this school because it's a very nice place to be, environment, and it also gets my artistic side that was sleeping. It's awakened now a little more, simply because I'm in an environment where it helps me to develop more. This even though even though I'm teaching, I still have the chance to perform, and I have my training, and I am learning a lot things. Like I'm now doing hand to hand, which for me was like a big challenge. It's still a big challenge. I'm learning other stuff that is related to handstands, and I'm balancing on my head. I started doing even like Washington trapeze a little. So anyway, my plan is I think I will remain in Portugal as a base. From here, I'm also trying to get more involved because I did a lot of teaching in Costa Rica, but I never got to teach in other parts.
Yeah.
Because I was also focusing training. I had only these few students, and then the workshops I was doing was for people that was not really into handstands a lot. So I was working a lot of beginners, and I had very few opportunities to teach more intermediate, and I do this now in the school, which is nice because now I have people that want to do handstands, so I can see the way I teach and what we do more in the future, because these people I see every day is not people that come one day and go. So that's the amazing thing now of being in this school.
That you can really
really work with people for a very long period of time, and it's not online, and it's more personal. So my plan is I think I remain here for the moment, and then and then I will try to also leave my get when I have my free time to teach a lot more. Organize maybe more workshops, and I wanted to in vacations maybe come back to Costa Rica for a while because
maybe host a retreat in Costa Rica.
Maybe host a retreat. I mean, Costa Rica is beautiful, so it's nice.
Great. Yeah, that sounds super good. And I can only recommend, if you get the chance, if Mao travels and you get the chance to attend a workshop, please do so, because he is really an exceptional teacher. Not only is he an exceptional hand balancer and performer, but he's really, really good at teaching, and he finds ways to, like I already said, to put you where you need to be and to make you feel the sensations you need to feel, because that's what it's all about in the end when you learn to hand balance, right? It's to find a balance, because balance cannot be taught. That's also something you said. So thank you so much for being on the show, and I'll put your links down below, Instagram and Facebook, and remember that the world is your playground, so just go ahead and do whatever you love. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next Monday on the Soundschi Show.